New York has basically become one of the shittiest places to live. It's like when I first moved here, it was all about the nightlife, going to the clubs, the bars, happy hour, just going out, having a good time, going back to work, whatever it is that you did, going to the rooftops, hanging out, meeting different people, meeting women, etc. Every once in a while, something would flare up. But it's like now, it's like the Big Apple is just shit. For the most part, most of the good stuff is closed. Sure, some of the local bars and restaurants are still open, but dating in New York now, especially after like 2019, more so, like the bar scene just completely died. Like the bar scene, rooftops, it was mostly dead, especially after the whole hashtag scenario where if you met the wrong person and there was like, you could find yourself in a lot of trouble if you met the wrong person. Happened to a buddy of mine. Slept with some chick. She realized you got a couple of bucks, maybe, and give me some of that money, or otherwise I'm gonna make an accusation. And I was like, after that, I was like, you know what? I'm good. And so then it's just like, well, what's the point of being in a big city? The lure of the big city, of being in the Big Apple, is, the lights, the theater. Some people enjoyed going to Broadway. Broadway's gone. Maybe one day, it will be open if you got a passport and they'll let you in, especially if you took the poke. But for the most part, I mean, New York has not recovered in terms of jobs, right? There are literally hundreds of thousands of jobs that have just evaporated in New York. And so a lot of people are still on unemployment, which is not going to recover anytime soon. And when you look at the other end of the spectrum, when you look at California on the complete opposite end of the country, they're already instituting UBI. And of course, this is starting incrementally with with income disparities, or everything is about equality and equity. And I think recently they just passed a bill where for women are going to get like X amount of dollars, right? So not only are you in certain states where they're going to give you more money, but then you have the federal government giving out money with the child tax credits, and that's just straight cash, right? If you have, for every kid you have, it's going to be like around 3,000 or something, 2,500 a month that people are going to end up getting. And it depends how they're going to work it out, right? And on top of that, the local government in California is like, well, we're going to give like 500 to 1,000, depending upon which news outlet you read. And they're like, only certain places are like only women, only minority women, right? So of course that's going to make dating even worse, right? Because if you meet someone and then you want to get into a relationship, or you're thinking about foolishly getting married, that makes it even harder, because now you have even more benefits coming that men have to compete with, right? So men, in essence, are competing against daddy government for women and resources, which is just going to lead to more, out of child wedlock. For every kid, you get a tax credit, right? So all that's going to happen is these women are just going to end up going onto the government dole for more money. In this end of the spectrum, in New York, we have seen a huge rise in crime, especially obviously within the black neighborhoods. But now it's starting to bleed into areas like Midtown. Recently, we had there was a 3-person shooting. 2 adults, 1 kid ended up getting shot in freaking broad daylight, right? This shit happens in broad daylight now. It used to be just limited. It used to be limited to like the Bronx, Harlem, etc. And now, of course, it's bleeding out into different parts of Manhattan with the violence. And we're not even in summer yet.
Every store on 125th Street was notified that it's Malcolm X's birthday. So if you're open, we take that as disrespect. All stores on 125th Street was notified that it's Malcolm X's birthday way in advance. So if you're open, we take it as disrespect.
It's all right.
You just came here.
Every year they do this in terms of disrespect. And you know this is disrespectful. So when you come back by, if everybody's not out of there, so you can't lock the people in. But if they're not out of there, this is the end of...
Boycott!
I'm telling you.
Boycott! Boycott! Boycott!
Not even summertime, and this is basically, of course, with the Jewish people and the Palestinians, and this is basically what's going on. This has been going on for days. And this is basically what Manhattan is. The crazy part is not that it happens, but how comfortable people are doing it. People are so comfortable. You see open racism. You see, as you can see, between the Jews and the Palestinians that are going on here, that people just don't feel any fear of the authorities basically putting an end to it, people getting locked up. They're just like, people just don't care. And this goes to the overwhelming apathy that sort of a scenario creates, where stuff like this continues. They're literally in front of the police. They're literally in front of the police having a fight over race. And the police are like, break it up, guys, break it up, take it easy, right? And this is what the politicians basically have. These are the flames that the politicians have been stoking, right? Pitting white people against black people against Asians. You're seeing a huge rise in crime against black against Asians, black against whites within the country. This is what the politicians basically have been doing, right? They're literally fanning the flames among these minority groups against one another. Like, keep the people busy, right? Throw out a gas shortage here. You talk about food shortages here, right? You talk about variants, right? And it's all to keep the people busy while you're doing the shit that you want to do behind the scenes. And once people start, what's going on over there? And they're like, look, squirrel, right? And they're like, oh, where? And this is basically what America has becoming. It's literally becoming a place of just from one distraction to the next, while the politicians basically rob the nation. The crazy part is nobody does it. Nobody cares. I mean, think about it. New York has a governor that has been proven to have shown that not only did he lie about how many people that died, but that he was responsible for putting all these people into the nursing home while also having multiple allegations of sexual assault. And he's still in power. Think about how corrupt the city has to be, where that goes on and people are just like, got the blinders on, police don't give a fuck. No one's going to prosecute. No one's even going to try to hold any of these people accountable. And this is what New York is. In California, you have the exact same thing. I had reported on a long time ago, almost $1 trillion that was part of the stimulus money just up and disappeared. A lot of it ended up in the criminal institution via people were like filling out. They were helping the death row inmates fill out for PPP loans, as well as getting the 1,400 stimulus checks. You had people on death row that were getting money, a lot of money, and finally they found out about it, and it was almost $1 trillion, and people were just like, just another trillion, especially because Joe Biden every couple of months he's like, we're gonna do another 200 here, another 400 here, another 4 trillion here, 1.2 billion here. Why not? Anybody else wants some money? Who else wants? Single moms? All right, let's cut a check for $5 billion. You got Cuomo getting $5 million for his book on leadership, and it's just ridiculous what's going on here in New York. But when you think about it, when you're trying to attack a nation, right, you attack it from two ends. You pincer it, right? You come in from one end and you come in from the other, and then you close in on your enemy. That's basically what's happening in America on the two spectrums. You have New York falling by the wayside, California falling by the wayside of socialism. You have New York, we're eventually going to get there, but more so crime. The crime is out of control here in places like New York. I can't even here in New York, crime is so bad. I could just imagine in places like in the Bronx and in other areas. I mean, it's really, it seems like every day another shooting. Shootings are up like, I don't know, what is it, 60, 70%. Homicides are up 20-25%. And you got people like Bill de Blasio is just like, want a cheeseburger, get your vax, right? That's what he's focused on. He's focused on get the poke, get you some fries, get you a shake with that. Does that work out? And I think even lately there was in New York, and I talked about this last time, that the only thing that matters is if you get the poke, to the point where New York is going to raffle off $5 million in the lottery for people who took the jab. And that's what I said. The money don't mean nothing. It's just paper with a die on it and a number value, right? And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything to politicians because they can just print the shit out to their heart's content, right? But what matters is you. What matters is whether you're going to be, you're going to take that poke. It has nothing to do with the virus. You can just look at places like Texas and look at places like Florida that have been open for quite some time. You could look at places, for example, like in Sweden, or take a look at Africa, right? Nobody talks about any of these places anymore. They're like this. They're like, calladito. They don't talk nothing about it. So they keep that shit quiet. But it's here in America. It just goes to show you how corrupt the nation is, how corrupt the politicians are, and the people are just so apathetic. They just don't care. They just don't have a care in the world about anything that's going on. They feel like there's no hope. There's nobody there in essence to save them. And it becomes a very dangerous place. Places like New York will collapse eventually. What business would want to start here? You've got Walgreens talking about they closed, I think, 20-something stores because they were just getting looted just nonstop. And I think it was in places like San Diego. They were just getting looted nonstop. They were like, the looting is out of control. We got to shut down all these stores. Like they can't take the L anymore. They're like, you know what, we're going to leave. We're going to shut these places down. All that means job losses, right? And the people who can't move, typically the poor, typically the minorities, these are the people that are going to suffer the most. And in scenarios like that, it just divulges into violence and death. Look at Chicago. Look at most of the places where minorities live. Look at most of the cities. Like, for example, in New York, they're just crime infested. And eventually, it finds its way out into different areas as these people eventually start to migrate. Or you would just end up killing themselves within the city. And this is what we get. Madness.
What, where are you? Wait, throwing bottles.